Hello and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I want to talk to you about chickens, and for those of you who are debating on whether or not you should get chickens, I'm talking to you. Have you ever asked yourself, should I get chickens? What do I even do when I get the chickens? How do I take care of them? Do you have concerns about, do I even have time to take care of them? How much work are they? I work full-time outside the home. How much work are chickens, and where do I even start? Because I have zero experience with it. These are some of the concerns that I have had when I was looking into getting chickens back in 2021. I've never lived on a farm before. I'm going to share with you how I overcame all of these fears and the various questions that I had. If you're considering getting chickens, I just might help you make that decision before this video is over. And if I succeeded, please let me know in the comments below and let me know where you're located. Even if I failed, I'm curious to see how far my video reached. As egg prices are soaring, you might be thinking about getting chickens. Egg prices have soared a couple of different times in the last couple of years. There was a situation in 2023, and then again, I don't know if it was the tail end of 2024, but then again, the beginning of this year, 2025. And I am sure that it will happen again. So as egg prices are soaring, you might be thinking about getting those chickens. Or you might be thinking about getting chickens because you're interested in creating a modern day homestead for a more sustainable, self-sufficient lifestyle. There are many reasons for getting chickens, and I think the main reason is so you can get the eggs. Eggs, of course, can be made in so many different foods. They can be sweet or savory. You can prepare it for breakfast, lunch, dinner, desserts, and appetizers. And if you have gardens, their waste is perfect for fertilizing your gardens. They do eat bugs. They are pets for some, and they can be entertaining. Just throw them a big, fat, juicy worm, and you will know exactly what I'm talking about. For me, they are all these things, plus they bring me peace and joy in the summer months. I'll be sitting poolside quietly, listening to all of nature with a beverage of choice. And I will just be watching them free range. And for me, this is so peaceful to watch. I call it my Zen zone. Although I've been gardening on a small scale for decades, I decided to enter into the modern day homesteading world for the purposes of being more self-sustaining, avoiding issues with egg shortages and price hikes, growing my own food as organically as possible without using pesticides, saving money, and also trips to the grocery store and circumventing being at the mercy of the commercial agriculture and poultry industries. And I have not regretted it for one moment. As part of this journey, I added a flock of chickens in 2021. If you would like to follow that journey, I'll include a list of videos documenting that process below. It may not be all of the videos I have, but it'll be quite a few of them to get you started. Oh, and I also incubated some of my ladies' eggs for my daughter and her husband along the way too. That was a very fun and an extraordinarily educational journey for me. I have videos on that too. But in this video, I'm going to share with you my experiences and what I have learned along the way to get my flock started, and hopefully to possibly help guide you if you're interested in getting chickens of your own. I will also share the steps I'm taking to add 23 new baby chicks to my flock, including how I will be ordering them. And I will be doing future videos when the time comes on how I plan to integrate them into my already existing flock. And this I am a little bit nervous about, but I do have a plan in mind on how I'm going to achieve this, and hopefully successfully. As a disclaimer, I am no chicken expert. I don't have decades of training or schooling, but I decided to make this video because when I was interested in getting chickens, I was very intimidated and felt like this was way too difficult. Lots of thoughts were running through my mind, like these are more lives that I'm going to have to be taking care of, and they're going to be depending on me. I know nothing about chickens. I'm afraid of how am I going to learn all of this while working full-time outside of the home? How am I going to have time for all this? And isn't this for people who want to be farmers full time? Or only for people who grew up raising chickens and know what the heck they're doing? So if you share any of these novice fears that I had years ago, let me just try to ease those fears. If I can do it, I promise you, you can do it. But only if you have the desire and drive and will to start this journey and see it through. Now, granted, I know there's people out there that may have started a journey like this and then they decided they didn't want their chickens. So they went ahead and they found people who did have chickens and then they just integrated them into their flocks. So I guess it's not all lost if you decide at a later time this is not for you. From my experience, I have never lived on a farm in my life. And if you asked the people who knew me as recent as 5 years ago, they would have never believed I would have ever done anything like this. If you're still watching, that tells me you are still interested. So high five to you, and seriously, you can do this. Here are the main things you're going to need to know before you ever buy or acquire your chickens. It's as simple as remembering the 3 S's: shelter, safety, and sustenance. In terms of shelter, I did do a video on how we built our coop. Granted, the coop was already built at the time because I wasn't making videos at the time of us actually building the coop back in 2021, which I'm so sad about, but it is what it is. But I go through and I show you all the components that make the chicken coop a safe place for them. So in terms of shelter, this is how to prepare for a new flock in advance. This is very important. Now, all this is from my experiences. If you're going to get baby chicks to start your flock, you are going to need you're going to need a brooder box, which this is an enclosure for baby chicks to grow until they are fully feathered because they can't regulate their body temperatures until then. It provides a warm, safe environment and a shelter from any drafts. I made a couple of videos on how I created my brooder boxes, and I did create 2 different sizes, mainly because the first one was a smaller one that I placed in my tub so I could monitor them closely on a regular basis. And I did this for the chicks for about the first couple of weeks of their lives. And they grow super, super fast. That's something you definitely need to keep in mind. I then created a larger brooder box that I placed into my garage. And then that's where they stayed until they were fully feathered. And that's around 5 to 6 weeks old. So I did that before I transitioned them into the coop. Once they're in the coop, you subject them to the weather that's outside. So that's why it's important to take care of them until they're fully feathered. I do have videos that discuss this further and to show you what they are, how I set them up, and so forth. It is extremely important to have your coop and run built or bought and set up prior to getting any chickens because everything happens so very quickly. So the next item on the list is safety. In terms of safety, everything is a predator of chickens, including our dogs. So when the chickens are free ranging, like today, the dogs are inside. We do live in the Midwest, so we have all types of predators like coyote, fox, possum, owls, hawks, skunks, raccoons, snakes, and other animals. So it is extremely important to keep my chickens safe. Some of these chickens can take 4 to 6 months or longer to start laying eggs if you start them as baby chicks. So you do not want to put all that work and effort into brooding them up just to allow some predator to have a meal. So safety starts with the coop and run. We have the coop completely enclosed, this being the coop side, and with the run here. So in the run, and you can't really tell with the plastic on, actually maybe, let me see if I can show you on this other side. As you can see, the coop is divided into like 2 different sections with this board running all the way around, about halfway on all these 3 sides. So on the top part, currently we do have only chicken wire. Now, knock on wood, we have not had an issue with any predators trying to get in. I suspect it's because it's higher up. So if they ever tried to get in down here, maybe they just gave up. I'm not sure. But hopefully this will remain a non-issue. But in the meantime, down here, I have different types of wire or fencing, whatever you would like to call it, 3 deep. So I have well, I have the chicken wire, which is right here. The reason why you don't want just chicken wire is because the predators that have hands or teeth, they could possibly rip those open. So I have the chicken wire as one layer. Then I have this, it's a 2x4 welded wire. And then I have this hardware cloth that's a 1/4 inch hardware cloth. So with the hardware cloth, when we designed this, when we built this, we ran the hardware cloth from here all the way down to about, a couple feet, 1.5 feet or a couple feet out under here. That is for any diggers. And if you notice, I also have stone here, and I have stone all along here. These are just the concrete cinder blocks. These happen to be stone that I have throughout my yard in terms of landscaping. So those are very handy. And I have that on the other side as well. That's going to prevent any of those predators that like to dig. They're just going to give up, or they're not even going to try because they know it's going to be too much work and effort to get to them. If you decide you want to free range your chickens, which I highly advise because that's where they get a lot of good natural nutrients from all the bugs that they are finding in the ground. So if you're going to allow them to free range, my rule of thumb is I personally never let them free range when I'm not home. Usually I let them come out and free range when I know I'm going to be working in the yard, which after I do this video, I plan on doing a lot of work trying to prune bushes and grasses and like the grasses around our pool. And just getting things ready for this year's garden season. So I'm going to be out here most of the day. So I felt like this is the perfect time for them to come out and free range. I personally don't let them out unless I'm going to be home, and I always lock them up at night. And so far, I have not lost one chicken to a predator, knock on wood. And before I forget, another security feature is any place that we have this style of closure, we also have the carabiner, because the predators that have hands, they're not able to manually remove that. So we have carabiners here on the nesting box. We have carabiners here. I will latch it and lock it up at the end of the day, which is the man door in their run. And then I have a carabiner on the clean out door so that they can't get inside there. I do have windows, and I do have the option for putting carabiners in here, but I haven't had to worry about doing that. On the windows, I have the 1/4 inch hardware cloth here. So, which that is so nasty. Look at all those bugs. I got to get this cleaned out. When I do my spring cleaning, I'll get that taken care of. But, oh, and inside their coop, just in case something gets in here, I do have a carabiner that hooks on here. I'm just leaving that open because I got to come in here and clean after I'm done with this video. You will have to make sure you have some sort of a container for food. You got to keep the food clean and dry. And you don't want access to any type of like rodents or anything that likes the food that the chickens eat. So I have a metal trash can, and I make sure the lid is solidly on there every day that I come out and I feed them, and then make sure that lid's back on. So in terms of the door here, this is a round handle. So I have not yet experienced any predator being able to open that round handle. So that's perfect for that. So those are some things you definitely need to keep in mind when it comes to the security and safety of your chickens. And the last S that we're going to talk about today is sustenance. So chickens need a balanced diet consisting of grains, protein, greens, and grit for optimal health and egg production. In terms of food, I currently feed my ladies a layer feed. I just love his crow. So my ladies are fed a layer feed, and even though I have Jules, so far, to my knowledge, he has not been affected yet. The layer feed's important because it helps with the, it has nutrients and stuff in there for the eggs to be nice and hard, because you have that calcium in the shells. Oh, what's wrong? Oh, you sneezing? Jules is sneezing. Oh my goodness. So in terms of how I feed them, and I don't know, I might change this up this year, but so far what I'm doing in terms of feeding them is I have these feeders. You just take the lid off, you feed them, which they need food, so I got to go ahead and fill that up. And then down here is where they will get the food. So it's little waste. I have 2 of those right now. I do know when I add 23 more chicks to the flock, or chickens to the flock, I'm going to need more feeders, either like this, or I'm going to need to get something different, which thinking about getting the type of feeder that I can fit a whole bag in. So that's even less time for me to have to worry about coming out and feeding them. The plastic waterers, I don't have them out here, but they have like the little nipples for them to peck at to get water. If you've watched any of my previous videos, I do show that in there. And yeah, I'm going to just have to clean this up this year. Their little swing is all broken. I'm going to do something different with that, make it a little bit wider for them. But yeah, it's good to have activities for them too, because sometimes they get bored. But going back to the whole food and water, I showed you the waterer that I have a heating plate with in the wintertime. They also like treats. There's various treats that they can eat. This can be anything from mealworms, cracked corn, sunflower seeds. They also eat various fruits and vegetables. They eat scrap, you know, our food scraps. Like when we cook, we'll just save the scraps, and then there's no waste for anybody. There's other treats too. I know after Halloween, I always post on Facebook if anybody's wanting to get rid of their pumpkins from their decorations from Halloween, that would love if they would love to donate them to me. So then I save those through the winter and I place them in their coop. I usually throw 1 or 2 in their coop a week, and then they have something to snack on because the pumpkin seeds are very good for them. I also, when I garden, sometimes I grow extra plants like tomatoes and things like that because they love tomatoes. So I might go ahead and grow an extra cherry tomato plant or what have you, or extra peppers or anything like that. Also in terms of food, grit. Sometimes I might add crushed eggshells or oyster shells. You can buy the oyster shells. They're crushed. But what foods to avoid? This is very important. Chickens should not consume foods that are high in sugar, salt, or fat, such as chocolate, avocados, and junk food. So, observations. I have noticed so far, at least with my chickens, that they tend not to eat things that they shouldn't. So, for example, I might see, you know, sometimes you have trash blowing in your yard. I might see that they might run up to it thinking it's food and they kind of peck around at it, but then they leave it and they move on. So it's weird, but they tend to know that what they shouldn't eat, but I can't guarantee that for anybody. So if anybody has chickens out there and they've had the experience where they're eating stuff they shouldn't be eating, feel free to share on those experiences as well. And how did you handle that? But I think I've covered the basics on what to do to get started with your chickens. And I know that's a lot of information, but now you might be wondering, where do I find the chickens or the pullets or the baby chicks to actually start my flock? So there are several options to that. You can go to your local farm supply store. Like in our area, we go to Rural King. So some of the pros of buying baby chicks from a place like Rural King, the pros are if they're in stock, you can buy them that day, and then you can also see them before you buy. The cons are they're not sexed, meaning that the chicks are not identified as male or female. So if you get 12 baby chicks, you might wind up with half of them being roosters, and if you are wanting egg layers, that's going to be a problem. And no, you do not need a male for your hens to lay eggs. The only time you might want a male, like one of the reasons why I wanted one male in my flock is because they really do help protect the chickens, especially if a predator is near. So that's why I decided to get a rooster, but I only chose one. I didn't want more than one. The only other reason why you would want a rooster, at least that I can think of, is if you are wanting fertilized eggs. Like if you want to incubate your eggs, which I have videos on that because I did incubate 12 of my ladies' eggs. I think it was a couple of years ago. Also, another option, another place you could possibly get chickens, whether it be chicks, pullets, or full-grown chickens, from family, friends, or local farmers. And the pros to this, if they're ready to rehome, you can see them before you take them home, and you might get your pick. You have a knowledgeable contact or a knowledgeable source nearby that can help answer questions, especially if you're new to chickens. The cons are, if they have a lot of different breeds, you most likely will get a hybrid. Maybe not necessarily, but that's a good possibility. It depends on how they are incubating their eggs, if it's in a controlled environment or not. But if you have multiple different species, they're going to interbreed. And so therefore you are going to have a hybrid. And they may not be sexed either. You may not know if you're getting a male or a female. When they get old enough, you can tell if they're male or female, but baby chicks, you generally can't unless you are experienced at sexting them. Another option is if you incubate already fertilized eggs. Sometimes you can buy these. Sometimes you might have friends that have the fertilized eggs because they have chickens, both hens and roosters. The pros to this, it is truly an amazing experience. Like, I loved every minute of it whenever I was doing the incubating. So the cons to incubating already fertilized eggs, or what you think might be fertilized, is not all the eggs may be fertilized or viable if they are fertilized. You might get half the batch or more that are roosters, and when you're really wanting the egg-laying hens. So if you catch my video on me incubating eggs, and then I did the reveal as to how many were roosters versus hens, you got to catch that video. It's not what I expected, let's put it that way. And the other option, the last option I'm going to discuss, is you can order them online, which is what I plan on doing. So the pros to this is, as long as you're dealing with a reliable online business, they will have information about each breed. You can select which sex you want with, I'd say, 99% of the chickens. I know there's one species of chickens that I don't think that they can sex them. At least that's my understanding. But most of them, they can sex. So you will be able to say, I want 10 hens in this type of breed, and like a Buff Orpington or a Black Astrolorp or an Easter egger. There usually is a customer service either online or via phone that you can ask questions. They may have information sheets or charts or videos to help you along the way. You can select your ship date for your chicks. So if you're not ready for them right now, I actually already ordered my chicks, and that was in February, and I'm scheduled them to be delivered the week of May 19th. So it's scheduled for a May 19th hatch date, which I'm super excited. Ooh. So when they ship, they are day-old chicks, and you should receive them in a day or two. And yes, it is safe for the chicks. Chicks can survive up to 2 to 3 days without eating or drinking right after they're hatched, because they are able to utilize the nutrients remaining in their retained yolk sac during this time. So the cons to ordering online, they generally are more expensive. They generally ship them if you do not live close to them, which this could potentially be traumatic for the chicks, but in my experience so far, they were all safe when I received them, and that was with my first flock, which these ladies and Jules, who is my Roo, this is all from my first flock. And I'm sure I'm missing some information, but that's the gist of it. And as I mentioned earlier, I am going to be adding 23 chicks to my flock this year. I already ordered them online, and I want to show you where I buy them and how the process looks.